now. Football matches are coming thick and fast. And at the weekend, after an intervention by FA Cup games, the Premier League was back, and beginning tomorrow night, Tuesday night, the Champions League starts again, and Liverpool will be playing Leipzig in the last 16. So there's games coming from everywhere. Unfortunately, no crowds. I think that's a major distraction. But fortunately, we have John Giles joining us to talk about the weekend's games. Just a general point, John. I must say I find so much of it soulless without atmosphere and crowds.
Oh, yeah, we didn't need the crowds, I mean. But what can we do at the moment?
No, nothing.
There's no alternative to it,
No, yeah.
And also the matches coming on top of each other as well. It's not doing anybody any good.
No.
Either them, it's either that or go broke.
Yep.
So we have to put up with it. We have to make the most of it,
Yeah. Now let's start at the weekend with Manchester City playing at home to Spurs, and looking at City, they don't have De Bruyne in recent weeks. They haven't had Aguero for a long time. He's had COVID. He's had injuries, and yet they are 7 points clear at the top of the table, with a game in hand of the second and third teams, Manchester United and Leicester. And the most remarkable thing about them, John, given Guardiola's record and with defence and considerations like that, they've only conceded 14 goals, 7 goals at home, 7 away. And they really have a very impressive defensive record. Now, Tottenham, I suppose people will be thinking, Mourinho, a few good players like, for example, Harry Kane and Son, but no way. They beat them comfortably.
Yeah, they beat them well, and they played well, and you refer there to their defensive record. I think that Diaz has come in, played well. Stones is back to where he was at the moment, anyway.
Yes.
When they bought him from Everton. So they've conceded very few goals, which has been the main complaint, actually, from myself and yourself.
Yep.
About not concentrating on defence. And the record is very good, which shows that it needed to be done, and he's done it. And they totally outplayed Spurs at the weekend. I mean,
yeah,
and you say that's without De Bruyne in the.
Yeah, and without Diaz as well. Laporte had to come in because Diaz was injured.
Laporte had to come in. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, when I think there's trouble at Spurs, Eamon.
Yes. Yeah.
I think there's trouble at Spurs. I mean, if you notice that at the press conference afterwards, Mourinho saying how great the lads did, and they did this, and they could have done this, they could have done that. And they didn't play well. They were well outplayed in the match.
Yeah.
And you could see the lads come in. He went on the pitch to say, well done. And you could see the lads sort of shrugged him aside.
Yeah.
Now that would be too harsh. But apparently there's rumours coming out that the players are not happy with what he's doing.
No, and
and it looked at...
You could see him before the game, John. Most curious, Spurs team came out first, and he hung around the tunnel waiting for Pep Guardiola. And he kind of he tried to embrace Pep. Now, his history when he was managing Real Madrid and Pep was at Barcelona, the history between them is pretty poisonous because, he behaved disgracefully, Mourinho. He poked the eye of Guardiola's assistant, who's now sadly dead, not because of Mourinho, but he died of cancer not long afterwards. But there's a very bad history. He caused terrible trouble in that Classico fixture, which is intense enough without him stirring the pot. So what was he trying to prove? They're waiting for Guardiola, that they were pals?
And anything but. You had to go with Guardiola there a while ago, claiming that he there was some mix-up or something. I don't know what it was.
It was COVID, I think. Yeah.
I was amazed at it. And then sort of shaking hands with a couple of the players as well. But after the match, he went on the pitch to hug them
Yeah.
These own players, and you could see the as if they. Then afterwards, he's saying, "Well, I'm proud of them, and they did this and they did that and the other." And you could see the players coming off the pitch; they weren't happy at all.
No.
But that seems to have catch. But from Manchester City's point of view, Eamon, it was a very, very good performance. They totally outplayed him. I think what they've got back in the team in recent times is what they had before, that we always talked about, getting the ball back and they've got that back again. They've got their mojo going in that particular way and making it difficult for the opposition. Totally outplayed Spurs. There's no complaints about that.
No, and they've got it back quick, John. I mean, it isn't too long ago since Leicester went to the Etihad and beat them 5-2. And I think you said, and I certainly said, they've gone. They're not doing the pressing.
I did, Eamon. I said there's no way for City this year.
Yeah.
But apparently, reading about it recently, apparently there was a huge meeting with all the coaches and players and obviously Pep himself at that particular time, Eamon.
Yeah.
Where there must have been a free talk. This is what we're not doing. This is what we got to get back to at that particular time. That's what it sounds like to me, which can happen. So, we always see it on the pitch, and they definitely have that back in their game again. They didn't give Spurs an inch, really.
No.
In the game. When they didn't have the ball and then did their stuff.
I mean, Spurs are halfway down the table. They've conceded a lot of goals as well for a Mourinho team, 25 goals. They're just ahead of Arsenal with a game in hand, admittedly. But they're down, and they're only 2 places ahead of Leeds, John. No disrespect, because we'll come to Leeds later on. But I would say that Levy, the guy who controls Spurs, Daniel Levy, it wouldn't have been mid-table that he'd have been looking for when he hired Mourinho. And there may well be trouble there, John, because whenever Mourinho has a bad time, or his team has a bad time, things tend to go pear-shaped very quickly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Eamon, if anything happened there, because he definitely, whatever he was saying on Saturday wasn't true. It was as if, I'm trying to keep on the side of the players. I'm proud of them, and they did this and they did that. That's not his game at all. And I think if, as you say, once it goes, it goes. And in Levy, see, the Levy case is peculiar as well. He wanted to get rid of Dele Alli.
Yep.
To Paris Saint-Germain, and Levy wouldn't let it happen.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't know what was going on.
Well, I think what seems to be going on in the case of Dele Alli is Mourinho's come to the conclusion that, which you came to a long time ago, but not many people did, that he's a waste of space. But Levy fancies him, thinks he's a good player. He's young, he's got the future, won't let him go. So I would say that's the situation. It seems logical, doesn't it?
Yeah, but once that happens, Mourinho hasn't got control over it.
No.
See, I think Levy's always at the money part. And I can understand that he's the chief executive there.
Yeah.
But I think he would think, look, if we let Dele Alli go on loan, it's definitely not. We're not going to get as much for him as we would anyway.
Yeah.
But there's such a conflict. I mean, if Mourinho wants him to go, then he should be allowed to go. So there's trouble there, and the biggest trouble that can happen is with the players. The players look fed up with him, Eamon. I'm only going on what I see after the match, where he come out to hug them as if they'd done really well. And the players knew they didn't do well.
Yeah,
so I think he's trying to get them on side, and that's not going to happen.
If you look at Tottenham, John, Harry Kane is the big player, and he really is a big player. He's a terrific player. He goes, it's over. And he'll want to go, won't he? I mean, there isn't a club in Europe that would not be interested in Harry Kane, is there? Oh, no. I mean, he's a terrific player. I mean, it just seems to be the spirit overall in the team. That's what that I saw. I mean, they were well outclassed, and he's coming. Normally now he'd come back out and say they didn't do it, or he blamed somebody, the players. But he's sort of hugging them and saying, and they did great, and they did what they could, and we could have had a goal in that. I mean, they were totally outplayed. It just doesn't sound right. No.
With Mourinho and his record in previous clubs.
Now, John, Manchester United, poor results yesterday. West Brom scored in the second minute, which gave United a long time to get back into the game and make their point and make an impression. It ended up 1-1. Fernandes scored a really good goal, I thought, with a minute before half-time. Had the whole of the second half, United couldn't get the job done. After the match, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said he wasn't giving up on the title yet. But when I'm looking at the league table in front of me, City have a game in hand and they're 7 points clear. I don't think United can close that gap, do you?
Well, it doesn't look like it at the moment, Damien. No. Actually, he made a comment earlier on in the week that I think he said, or hinted that he said, we're not going to win it. You know?
Yeah.
But if they keep playing like they're playing, they were very poor on Saturday.
Yeah.
The attitude wasn't good. In fact, West Brom had a couple of chances.
Yeah.
In the second half, to get a win.
They did, yeah.
You know, United had all the possession, most of the possession, but they got off to a bad start, and then they just weren't up for it in the way that a team in their position should be up for it.
Yeah,
definitely not.
No,
they didn't deserve to win it.
No, they didn't. And there's something odd, John, about the situation with Donny van de Beek. He's a player they bought from Ajax. Yeah. He cost 40 million. He's a very good player, but he never starts, hardly ever starts in the Premier League. He came on again as a sub for Fred with 10 minutes to go against West Brom. The question or situation appears to be that I don't think Solskjaer bought him, John. If you paid 40 million for a good young player, you'd play him, wouldn't you? Certainly with McTominay and Fred
I would imagine the options. So, I don't think Solskjaer is in charge of the transfer system. I just don't.
Yeah.
And I think the situation there with that lad, he plays in a very similar position as Fernandes does.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
He's very similar. So there's no like when you're getting the midfield or the defenders, there has to be a balance to what you want to do, like a balance in midfield, a balance up front, and that. I mean, if you have that lad playing Beck is it?
Van de Beek.
Yeah, Van de Beek. Sorry, Van de Beek. I can't see him and Fernandes ever being able to play together.
No.
One of them is going to have to change in what they do, and that's not going to happen. I mean, you buy Fernandes for what he is, you buy Van de Beek for what he is.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think they can play together, but it's not balanced.
No.
So it's like when you're paying 40 million for a player, Eamon, like they did, as you say there, then there has to be a balance to what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's not the case, and I think that's why he doesn't play him.
Right.
But I don't think he's in charge of the whole situation. I don't think he's in charge of the transfers and all that.
No,
really, I don't.
And the fact that he's not picking him is interesting. About if you look beyond that, the dynamic in play, it means that Ed Woodward, the chief executive, bought him, gifted him to Solskjaer, and Solskjaer said, well, sorry, Mr. Chief Executive, I ain't going to play this guy, and he hasn't. So that's a really interesting dynamic there, John. It's Solskjaer.
But it could well be, Eamon.
Standing up for himself.
Yeah. Well, he's picking the team. I mean, I don't think they can say to him, I want you to pick this lad because we bought him. That'd be going too far.
Yeah.
But you see, whoever's bought the players, funny enough, it's a strange enough situation at Manchester United. They have bought well.
Yeah, they have bought some very good players.
In charge of it.
No.
But the players that they brought in, the right back and Cavani, and there's somebody in charge. I don't think it's Solskjaer.
No.
So they probably had to choose. Well, Van de Beek is a really good player. We'll buy him. I don't think Solskjaer would be really consulted in a way.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
I think that's what we bought. Now you get on with it, Adam, and they have bought the purchasing has been good, but you need a balance to it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what he hasn't got.
Yeah. One of our listeners emailed me.
Then when he gets those players in, it's up to him to get the attitude right. Now, the attitude was terrible, I thought.
Yes, yesterday
on the weekend.
Yeah,
really poor. So
One of our
It's
listeners
difficult.
mailed me, John, a young man, Alan
Yeah.
Moran. He's a big fan of yours, and he comes back to this question, which arises with Frank Lampard, arises with Solskjaer. Managers, particularly inexperienced managers, young managers, are nominally in charge, but they're not in charge
Yes.
of the buying and selling in a club, and
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the way it's always been in Europe, really. That you're a head coach, you're not really the manager, and that's really
Yeah.
been the way at all the great European clubs. In England, until at least Wenger and Ferguson, certainly in Ferguson's case, he was in charge with David Gill, who was the chief executive of the time.
Yes.
What Alan is suggesting in his email is, what do you think of it? Well, we know what you think. You think it's wrong. And it doesn't
Yeah,
make...
So I think going back over the years, and in my experience, my short experience in management in England, is that the directors, they weren't owners in those days, they were directors.
Yeah.
But they like to be in charge. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about that, right? Because I went through that experience myself.
Yeah.
But when Shankly went to Liverpool, for example, like, they sold a player, right, that Shankly didn't want to go. But Shankly had to, like all managers, prove himself, Eamon.
Yes.
And once he proved himself, he got in charge.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
Don Revie was the same at Leeds. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
They gave him a really hard time. He didn't start off well. He gave him a really hard time. And he got on top for 10 years or so. And he detested the directors.
Yeah.
Eamon.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the way it was. Unless you could do it over 2 or 3 years and get really in charge of the situation. And that's what the directors had. I know for a fact myself at West Brom. So what changed over the years were the owners and the director of football.
Yeah,
right?
it's very
when
rare.
they appointed the director. When they directed the director of football, Eamon, I'm talking about the owners now. He was their director of football.
Yes, exactly.
He wasn't the manager's director of football.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if they were on a transfer system, the director of football was responsible to the directors. They were buying in and selling, apart from Ferguson, who had a very, very strong relationship, which was then the sort of director of football. And he would do, if he wanted Joe Bloggs, he got him Joe Bloggs.
Yeah, it's just happened to
now, what happens to the director
Bruce.
of football, Eamon?
Yeah, it's just happened to
But if
Steve
you want
Bruce.
what happens now with the director of football, Eamon? Say you want Joe Bloggs, and the owners don't fancy Joe Bloggs. They can make up all sorts of things. He's looking for too much money. The cost is too much. So we can't get him. So they finish up getting the players in that they want to get in.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's the situation at Manchester United. I think Solskjaer would have been made aware of the situation, in my opinion, when he was coming in to do the job.
Yeah.
And accepted that situation.
Yeah.
That's the way I would read it.
Okay, and we've seen it at Newcastle. Steve Bruce, they're struggling. Newcastle, they're playing tonight, actually. I think they're playing Chelsea.
Yeah.
Big game for both clubs for different reasons. Chelsea can go into the top four, and Newcastle can be a step closer to relegation, but he's just got a director of football in, which clearly he doesn't want. Now, I want to move on. I have to move on to Liverpool. Painful, though it is, to move on to Liverpool, John, and their game against Leicester. With, 12, 13 minutes to go, they're 1-0 up. They've dominated a lot of the game, really, and then it all goes pear-shaped. 3-1 in the end. I have to say, John, I think the injuries have destroyed Liverpool. But what happened on Saturday and what happened at home to Manchester City has shaken my confidence in what's going on there. Let's take Saturday, John, and your take on it.
Well, it's not the Liverpool that we saw last year. I mean, that's pretty obvious to everybody. They've had a lot of injuries. It's hard to know. Well, first of all, it was very unusual for Alisson, who's been a terrific goalkeeper,
Yes,
to mess up in 2 big matches.
Yep.
You know, making the mistakes. I could never see that in him. And I still can't see it in him. He's been absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
And he's done what he did. And because I thought Liverpool were well in charge of that game.
Yep.
Up to the incident, and playing well. I thought they were playing well, and they just collapsed.
Yeah.
They just collapsed.
The first
with
goal.
Yeah,
I mean, the first goal was Maddison's free kick.
Yes.
VAR. I think the guy was offside, and yet there was a foot, somebody's foot, that meant
Firmino's a part.
Yeah, Firmino's a part of his foot, and that's how the goal was allowed to stand. Now, the guy who was offside was also interfering with the goalkeeper. He was in the goalkeeper's eye line. I don't know to what extent that this VAR thing is becoming a major problem. Every game now, or many games, are reduced to a nonsense. Mike Dean last week getting death threats, which of course is wrong, but his decision to send off the West Ham player Thomas Sucher was mad. I don't know if you saw the match. When Sucher just turned around.
I did see it, and right. I know about VAR and there's bad decisions on it. I know there's bad, but if you go back to Saturday's match, which we're talking about, really, the VAR did its stuff for not allowing the penalty. The referee was given a penalty on the incidents leading up to the free kick.
Yeah.
Right. So if we didn't have VAR, there would have been a penalty anyway.
Okay. So 1-up to VAR.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do. Yeah. No. And I'm saying. I'm saying 1-up to VAR because they spotted that the referee had made a mistake. In this case, Anthony Taylor was the referee. He was actually quite a good referee. Now, unfortunately, then we move on, and it's a free kick. I think Liverpool lined up in the wrong place. I thought they were too close to the goalkeeper.
They weren't good. They weren't. Yeah. I agree with you with VAR. VAR has good points and it has bad points, Eamon. There's no doubt about that, and that showed on Saturday. But from Liverpool's point of view, I mean, I heard Klopp afterwards, and I don't blame him, most managers sort of blamed that for the collapse.
Yeah.
In Liverpool. It was still only 1-1, Eamon. It was still only 1-1.
Yeah.
And Alisson had to make his mistake after that. In other words, Liverpool went to bits.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't expect at all.
No, just...
once that happens to you, okay, VAR will go for you, go against you. But any times that there's, like in all top teams, you get goals given against you. And they pick up from that. Liverpool of last year, Eamon, wouldn't have collapsed the way they did.
No, they wouldn't. Just let's look at the
second. Wouldn't, you know?
Let's look at the second goal in detail, John. A long ball is hopefully punted forward. Now, this young lad who's come in on loan, Kabak, he came in from Germany. He was at Schalke.
Yes.
He's obviously not a starter at Schalke. They wouldn't let him go. Now, I thought the mistake was Alisson's because Alisson can see everything. Kabak can't. So he's the one who's got to give the shout. Either clear it or it's mine. I'm coming. But in fact, I don't know if Alisson shouted. It didn't look as if he shouted because Kabak still made an attempt to play the ball. It flicked off his foot, and Jamie Vardy just got a put in there. That's a really shocking error of judgment by the goalkeeper.
Definitely, Eamon. I mean, it was 22 yards out.
Yeah, way out.
You know what I mean? Like, he's no need to come anywhere near the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, the Kabak lad wasn't under pressure at that time.
No.
Do you know what I mean? He could have taken it down, or he could have passed it back to him. Alisson made a really, really bad decision to go there. Yeah. And I think when you're running out like that, Eamon, it's very hard to give anybody so far away from you a shout.
Yeah.
What are you going to shout? Leave it, I'll get it.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a really, really bad decision, which is most unusual for him from his form at Liverpool since he's gone there. But what was be worrying about from Liverpool's my point of view is that they collapsed after it. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
It was still only 1-1. Okay, you say, well, okay, we have to put it. But they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. Like Liverpool, they were well on top before the incident came for the goal, and then just went to bits. That's not Liverpool. No matter who's playing, Eamon.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. They're in a bad place now, Liverpool. They've got a Champions League game against Leipzig tomorrow. You're not allowed into Germany, so it'll be played. It's at a neutral venue, but they're struggling, John. And I just want to ask you about one player, Thiago. He's the midfield player. He's come from Bayern Munich. He was at Barcelona before that. He's got a good pedigree. He's a very different type of player than Henderson and indeed Fabinho, who are stronger, more forceful players, play the ball forward much quicker, in my opinion. What do you make of him so far?
Well, I like him, Eamon. I think he's a very, very good player at what he does. I think he could be potentially the most constructive player that Liverpool have. But he's coming into a situation that's the worst time you could come into for a new player.
Yeah.
Because they're not playing well. They're not doing all the stuff. They've had a lot of injuries. And he's coming into that now. I mean, if you put him in the situation last year, I think it's a little bit unfair on him to be judged in the way that some people are judging him. I think he's a very good player who I think in the long run will be a very, very good asset for Liverpool. I think I really like him. I think he's a good player. But what happens is when Liverpool haven't done so well over the years, but particularly last year, and then he's got into it and they're not doing well, it's very easy and convenient to say it's because of him.
No.
But if he's playing in the Liverpool team that was there last year, I think he's a really good player who's come into a bad situation, at the worst possible situation for him at this particular time.
Okay. We haven't got an awful lot of time left, but we have enough time left, John, to talk about Leeds.
Oh, God, yeah.
Arsenal 4, Leeds 2. At one stage, it was Arsenal 3-0. John, I know you watched. I know you're intrigued by this Leeds team. What did you make of them yesterday? They're safe. They're not going to be relegated. That's for sure. What did you make of them yesterday?
Well, the real Leeds team, Eamon, with the real Leeds attitude under Bielsa, only turned up at half time.
Right.
Goalkeeper now didn't help them, but there was signs, and I was watching one of my young. I said, Leeds are in trouble here. They didn't have that fire. They didn't have that go. They were awful. And then the goalkeeper, who had an opportunity to really make a name for himself, let them down.
Yes.
I think he was at fault. He gave the stupid penalty away, and I think he was at fault for at least two of the other goals.
He was at fault for the first goal. Yeah, the one at the near post. The Aubameyang's first goal. Yeah.
Yeah. That's two goals, and then I think he was at fault for the other one. It was 3 goals, and I thought, what's happening here? I think I rang you at one time. I said, this is going to be 6 or 7, the way it's going.
Yeah.
And then in the second half, the team that you regard as Leeds now started to play. As we know, got back to 3-2. I think there was a penalty turned down that they should have got.
Yeah.
That could have made it 4-3.
Yeah.
And put Arsenal under severe pressure because they really come onto the game and played like Leeds have been playing all season in the second half. So I can't understand how they started the way they did.
Yeah.
They were poor. There's no life about them.
Yeah.
They went 4 down. I thought this could be 6, 7 or 8. And in the second half, then it was the team, the Leeds United team that we recognise from this year, and made a match of it.
Right.
Strange enough. But you can't give 4 goals away, Eamon.
No.
Nobody can.
No, even Bielsa and Leeds. Okay,
or even Leeds at their best.
Right. We're very grateful to you, John, for joining us. Just a final thought on this. City going to win the league, John, and they're going to win it by a lot. And it's an extraordinary achievement for Guardiola. I've been very begrudging, shall we say, about Guardiola over the years, in fact, because he wouldn't, as I thought, build a team properly, defence and attack. He appears to be embarked on that project now, and I'm happy to see it because, it's important that, he gets a chance in the Premier League to lay down his marker. Just the final question about the Champions League, John. It starts again tomorrow night, and another one of our listeners, I think it was Don Nagel, one of the emails which I always read, wonders if they can win the Champions League, City, with this team. My own personal opinion, Don, for what it's worth, is they can't. But the opinion you really want is John. So, John, can they win the Champions League with this team? And I'm bearing in mind they need to get De Bruyne back, in my opinion, and probably Aguero, because you need a bit more than what they've got up front to win. Anyway, do you think they can win the Champions League with this team?
Yeah, I think they're capable of winning it, Eamon, because if you look at Barcelona, not Barcelona.
No, Real Madrid,
Real Madrid are not Real Madrid in the other years. I think they're capable of winning it. I think as well, Eamon, I wouldn't write Liverpool off. Out.
Neither would I.
League.
No, I wouldn't.
You know what I mean? They go get their players back. I think it's wide open.
Right.
I think it's wide open, the Champions League. I mean, are Bayern Munich doing what they did?
Not really. They're winning the they're winning the Bundesliga, but they're 4 points ahead of Leipzig. They're 4 points ahead of Leipzig. They've a game in hand.
Yeah, so it's wide open. I mean, if Liverpool get through this particular time and start getting their players back, which could happen, and getting their form back, which I think they will at some stage.
Yes.
Then I wouldn't rule them out at all.
Okay.
Of the Champions League. Again, I only go on my own experience in it. I mean, when I was my last year at Leeds, when Cloughy came in, we were ruined.
Yeah.
We were ruined, right?
Yeah.
And the morale had gone and everything else. But when it came to Champions League matches, we got together again.
Yeah.
And we actually got to the final
against Bayern Munich
of the Champions League.
Yeah, and you were robbed.
Munich. And we were robbed in that particular match.
I know that.
You know what I mean? So we finished halfway up the league game in that year, but we got to the Champions League.
Every time I buy a Bacardi and Coke, you tell me we were robbed in that Champions League final.
Well, I don't go on about it.
No, you don't.
I'm only explaining what can happen in the Liverpool situation, where they could say, right, we're out of the league. He might say out of the league. But now they might get the concentration back and the team that we see more of the team than we saw last year in their attitude.
Yeah.
Because the Champions League, as we know, is a knockout competition. It's not a week in, week out. That's what I think, and I wouldn't rule them out of that particular competition, Liverpool, and certainly you certainly wouldn't rule Manchester City out because they're going well.
Okay, John. As always, a pleasure to talk to you. We're very grateful to John Giles.